Hello, everybody. Welcome to Life First Conversations, episode number 8. We're on our 8th episode with George Rivera. George, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Miguel. Excited to get chatting with you.
Yeah, me too. I know I've been looking forward to this. You and I met back in November, I think, in Kevin's group, Thompson's group, who, by the way, was also interviewed here back in January. So full circle. We met back then, and I really enjoyed some of the things that you were saying. I related a lot to it. It resonated a lot with me. I'm really excited to jump into that conversation. For those of you who are new to Life First Conversations, I don't usually refer to this as a podcast. This is a limited interview series. We don't know how long this is going to last, but these are just conversations that I felt are important to have. What I'm hoping to achieve with these conversations is to really flip the narrative or flip the script of what is normally out there when it comes to conversations around success and business. We hear enough and plenty about what it takes to be successful, having good habits and having good, being disciplined and waking up at odd hours in the morning, while everybody else is asleep. We know what it takes to necessarily be successful. But one thing I've learned over the years, and I'm still learning, is that it's less about what we're building in business and more about who we are becoming and who we want to become as human beings, especially if we're parents, if we're husbands or wives, if we have people that we care about. Those relationships are extremely important. And if we're building something like a business, sometimes it can take a lot from us. How can we not necessarily find balance, but how can we create an environment where we're not limiting ourselves of being successful, of creating wealth, of creating generational wealth, perhaps, but really, really being there for the things that really matter in our life while still doing the things that we want to do to build that wealth. With us here today to talk more about that is George Rivera. George, so talk to us a little bit about, the beginning. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing. I mean, I posted about this conversation prior to kind of just promote the conversation. So we know that you've built something big, you sold it, now you're working on something else. But where did that start? Did you start at the top? And yeah, give us an idea on that.
Originally from Puerto Rico, Spanish was, or I should say, is my first language, and so was always a little bit of a slow learner because I didn't learn English until about the first or second grade. Like I still spoke with a really thick accent, very different than my friends and peers at the time. And so I was always a little bit self-aware of that, kind of sticking out. So I grew up kind of a shy kid. Like I'm afraid to even speak because I'm like, I don't know that I'm going to sound right. And then I'd say kind of started coming out of that shell maybe in middle school or high school. And yeah, and so, but grew up mostly in Texas in my childhood, but we'd go back to Puerto Rico a couple times a year where I'd keep my Spanish up to date. Now I need to kind of go back and practice it a little bit again. But yeah, and when I was 17 years old, I started my first business while I was still in high school. That started because for the couple years of being 16 and 17 years old, in the nights and weekends, home from school, or off from school, I should say, late night infomercials would show like these make money from home commercials. And I remember seeing this guy's name's Don Lapre, and of course this dates me way back, but he would be pitching like this amazing lifestyle with just cash in his hand and this nice Hawaiian shirt standing in front of the beach, just touting this amazing luxury lifestyle. And then he'd say how he started in a tiny one-bedroom apartment and he just blew up to this massive business. And I remember watching it for a couple of years, just like, man, one day I want to be like him, and I'm just going to buy that course. So I took my mom's credit card, and I don't know, it's probably like 50, 60 bucks. I bought the course. It came to my house. I tore the thing open. I implemented it, and I launched my first campaign. I didn't make any money, but if I can credit that program or that infomercial with one thing, is that it like scratched the niche that I had. It like found something within me. It communicated something to me that I don't want to ever be controlled by somebody else. I want financial independence, and I want to be my own boss. I want to control my own destiny. At least I ate all of the marketing message up.
Yeah.
And so did fail at that. But again, having that spark, I was like looking for the next thing. And not too long after that, I picked up an issue of Small Business Opportunity magazine, and I think they're still out there. I see them once in a while at Barnes and Nobles. And yeah, I was just going through the magazine, and there's a bunch of good articles, and then they've got a bunch of ads to become a distributor for this product or that product. And there was this big ad that said something like, "Take part of this the growing supplement space," because the boomers are buying all the anti aging stuff at the time, and they're in their 40s, maybe early 50s at that time, and they're like the largest segment of the population at the time. I think now millennials have sort of taken that over, but at the time, like the economy would move in the direction of the boomers' interests and what they're up to and what phase in life they were in. And so at that time, again, it was just anti-aging stuff, especially in the supplement space. And so, yeah, I started in the supplement space back in the, I'd say, call it mid to late 90s, 97, 98. And that's when I got my first website online and got my first sale, and been stuck in the online supplement space ever since for the most part.
Wow. And then what happened next? I mean, so you found this space. So talk to me about this business you built, because this is what you talk a lot about in your posts as well. You know how you started this business and it was doing pretty well. You were investing a lot of time and capital into it, and you wanted to grow it and expand it. Walk me through that. I mean, before you got to that 50 million revenue business, how did that start? What was the
Yeah. Well, there were lots of ups and downs getting to that point, like there is in any entrepreneur's path once you look at a long enough timeline. And so, yeah, I started in the supplement space, and I veered off into other things like information products. I sold cars on eBay, pepper sprays and stun guns and personal self-defense items. I even did some coaching and consulting in the online space on marketing. And then I created a program, and I started teaching other people how to make money online through like through my own info product course. And so, yeah, I had even built a great business in Google AdSense. That's basically where you're creating a bunch of these little sites designed to like rank well in SEO. And then you display the Google AdSense code on it, and then you get paid a lot of money, relatively speaking, for the click, like a commission essentially per click. And yeah, that was a great revenue model. Actually, in 2005 was my first year doing $1 million, and it was primarily through Google AdSense. But then, overnight they completely killed that business model because, just with an algorithm change or, policy update, it's like, boom, done. And so it was kind of my first major blow. I'd had other little blows, but that was a big one because I'd sort of put all my eggs in that one basket. And I sort of like, I'm going to ride this Google wave for eternity. I guess at the time I'm young, I'm thinking this thing's going to last forever. Of course, we all know that not many things last forever. And so that was my first real kind of gut punch in business. And then took about a year to sort of find my footing again, and then I did so in the make money online space, and that kind of like rode me through. And then once again, because depending on Google, they didn't like the model. I was just lumped in with other people. I had a really good product, but the industry as a whole was very known for like just shady tactics and deceptive marketing. And of
Mhm.
course, I'm competing, with people in other countries who don't have to abide by our laws, saying, "Hey, make $1 million in your first year doing hardly anything." And of course, I'm playing by the rules, but because I'm in the make money from home space, I just get lumped in with all the bad guys. So that was another business trajectory, was, seven figure in business. Remember the first couple of years scaled to the six-figure mark and heading that way. And then it just boom, another kind of like cut at the knees there. So I was like, this is twice that Google has cut me at the knees, two different parts of Google. Like the lesson is, let's not continue to put all of our eggs in one basket. So I'd probably spend 6 months or so in the wilderness figuring out what to do next. But meanwhile, in the wilderness, I was part of a couple of masterminds, and I remember a couple of friends. One in particular was asking for help with her sales funnel, and I was giving her advice. I wasn't doing it from a advising, coaching, consulting perspective, like monetary. I was just doing it as a friend. I was like, okay, you've got this, but you're making 50 cents per click revenue wise. But if you do this, this, and this, you should at least double it. And when she took my advice, it like multiplied it times 10. And these are common things that people do now. So it's nothing earth shattering. It's putting a video sales letter together. It's putting an upsell funnel that's designed to like go up in price, and then some downsells if they say no. Just strategic placement of products and services that all speak the same message, different things, but like the outcome is congruent. So, if it's like a weight loss supplement, how do we now feature a joint pain product? And so like those don't seem like they go together, but somebody who's losing weight likely has joint pain. And so the messaging is like, hey, you've got a tool now to lose weight. It's likely that that weight has put a lot of stress on your joints. Here's a joint pain product, obviously better said, but that's how you kind of make the alignment sort of make sense. And so doing that by accident, my friend got excited and said, "Oh my gosh, this is awesome. You need to help my friend who also struggling with the same issue." Helped her out, worked out well. And then she's like recommending me to somebody else. I was like, hold on a second. Now I'm getting to people I don't even know. I need to charge people for this.
Yeah.
And eventually started an agency advising people. And actually, a component of that was like a done for you service where I would just build their sales funnel for them. And it wouldn't be me. I would be hiring a team to do this for me, but I just oversaw the team and I'd
Mhm.
scaled it to about 40 people at its peak. And yeah, it was a great business, but it was very, very demanding because all of the quality control fell on me. So while it was a good business, it was very high pressure. And it's not just like one business. I'm now in charge of 6 or 7 different businesses, and it's like, so there's like a fire every single day, amongst these 6 or 7
Yeah.
different clients. And so yeah, that was kind of my first experience kind of tasting a lot of that extreme high level stress. I wouldn't say that that's where I broke yet, but kind of in the middle of that season is when I got married and then started to have a family, and then that's when you start to feel the tension because like when you're single, you're on your own. Maybe that's the season of hustle where you can sort of do it and you're on your own. So like there's not a major consequence on the other side. I mean, sure, you can argue your sanity, your health, and all that stuff super important. So for that alone, we should not like hustle ourselves to death. But if there's ever a season, it's like when you're young and single. But I was growing out of that. And so yeah,
How old were you at the time when you were kind of growing, when you got married and growing out of that?
yeah, so I got married in my early 30s. Yeah. And so I'd already been past, the 20s and all that. And that was kind of the season of the constant grinding. And I took that same grinding attitude into my marriage, into my early 30s. And so yeah, and that starts to create friction. I mean, at first it's like, okay, that my wife kind of knew what she was getting because that's, while she was dating me, she knew that I was a hustler and a grinder. But eventually it's like, all right, you're kind of, missing a lot of things and you're not there for these moments.
Well, yeah, because from the outside, it sounded, I mean, especially when this is probably around the time where, or maybe getting close to around the time where your business was getting close to that 20 million a year revenue. And so from the outside looking inward, it looked like just success. Like, oh, everything is going really well. But what would you say was maybe breaking underneath what people couldn't see, or maybe even what your wife couldn't necessarily see but was feeling?
Yeah, it's yeah, totally. Something is like it's hard to explain in words, but you totally feel it. And I don't know that I can pin it on like a word, but it's just like breaking commitments, not on purpose, but it's like, hey, yeah, I'll be there. Sorry, I can't. This came up, and you know how important this is. I have to do this, and it's like, okay, but you're always breaking commitments, and it's like. I'm like, okay, but you want to live in this house. This is what I got to do to like maintain this lifestyle. And
Yeah, this
so
is
there,
the agreement we had that, by the way, we never actually spoke about.
yeah,
But this is
the
the agreement.
unknown, yeah,
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 the
or the
unknown
unspoken,
agreement.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
So yeah, there's that tension to work through, and like some marriages fall apart because of that. Fortunately, ours didn't. We worked through that, but really the moment that just like almost like hit me in the head with a frying pan, as if the other stuff didn't do it, was 2 weeks before my dad passed away. This is 2015. He said, "Don't miss Leo's games. I missed too many of yours." And when he told me that, that was like a big kind of punch in the face. I had a couple of memories as a young boy, essentially 13, 14, back in high school, played in about 40 basketball games, and where he should have been present, where I could see him in the stands, he was just never there. He only attended one game.
Why
Now
wasn't he there?
well, he was a very successful medical doctor. He owned his own practice, and so he was kind of in this unique hybrid, medical doctor businessman, and he just like gave a lot into his career. And it's easy to think back and kind of like give him some suggestions based on the stuff that I know now. You could have been doing this and that and delegating, and I could have given him a whole plan. Of course, as a 40-something-year-old man to my dad, who when he was like half of the age that I was 30 years ago, like doesn't make sense. But in my head, I'm like, hey, he could have done all these things, but there's just no manual for this kind of stuff, especially like in the mid 90s. It's like, the culture then, and even still to this day, is like you just grind it out. You're the provider for the family, and as long as you're providing, then you can pretty much just keep doing whatever. Assuming it's ethical and all that, but like this is just what I do. I provide. I provide a paycheck and a nice roof, for the family.
Did you feel it back then? I mean, when you were a kid and your dad wasn't showing up to the games. I mean, were you aware of that at the time, being at that age? Like, crap, my dad's not here, or
Yeah.
was it kind of like more justifying it, like, oh, he's not here, but he's working and all good.
So I had my coping mechanism with that, and I didn't realize it was a coping mechanism till later reflecting, because like when you're 13, you don't even know what
Yeah,
the heck coping means.
we get
But
into therapy and then we learn all this stuff. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. I had this thought of I'm loaning my dad to the world to make it a better place. And that's how I felt proud of my dad. So there's an element of where I really did and still do feel proud. Like I'd hear people, like outside of my normal environment where they'd say, "Oh my gosh, your dad helped so and so." And I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, that's my dad. Yeah, I'm super proud." But there's this other side of like, where the heck is my dad? Because I was at the games, I'd score a basket, I'd look at the empty stands. There's no dad there. But my teammates, they would score a basket. Dads are cheering in the stands. And I'm like, I wish that's my dad, because that dad's here for his son, just loving on his son. And every boy loves and cherishes the praise and approval of the father, and that's like what we're born to like receive that and to seek that out, and that fills us up. Like there's a void when we don't get that, because we're going to get it from somewhere. It best be from dad. And in today's climate, little boys and little girls too, like they'll get it from iPads and iPhones if they don't get it from mom and dad. And so, but yeah, at that time I did feel the void, and I had my own little coping mechanism. But the thing is, like, kinda, like, got over that. I never, like, thought about that again, I didn't let that, like, hang over my life, like, "Oh my gosh, I'm some victim or something." I just got over it, and essentially, I became my dad, I started, grinding away, and when I did get married, I didn't even change my habits because I was like, "Hey, this is just what we do."
did you recognize it then as well, or did all of this kind of come to like I'm sure it was a combination of things. I mean, your wife, you mentioned, pointed it out, but did it all kind of start pivoting when your dad? I mean, it sounded like he was on his deathbed, right? When
Yeah, yeah, and no, that's really, like, when it hit me. I mean, I could say I got the clues here and there, but it just, like, boom, like, he said, "Don't miss Leo's games, I missed too many of yours,"
and
and
was Leo already born at that time,
yeah,
or?
Leo was like 10 months old at the time, and so, yeah, he's already starting, to learn how to walk and talk. He was kinda early in those things, and I'm missing those moments, and, my wife's, like, sending me pictures and videos and kinda, like, with a little note, "Hey, you missed another moment." Not being mean, but just, like, factual, "Hey, 'cause you missed it, I'm sending it to you," and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, I should be there for these moments," and so that's when I realized, "Oh my gosh, I'm you all over again," back to my dad, and I have this saying where he always gave us nice homes, cars, and trips to Europe, and I'm doing the whole nice homes, cars, trips to Europe thing in exchange for my presence, and it
Yeah,
wasn't like his presence was hostile, nor was my presence hostile when we were present, but it was just mainly like the absence of leadership, because we're so busy over here, and then when you're home you're drained, you're stressed out or frustrated or whatever it is, the issue that you're bringing home from work. And
yeah,
so that was the issue. And I remember thinking when he said that, I'm like, I was the little boy that didn't like it, now I'm doing it to my son. This ends here. I'm like,
yeah.
this generational pattern is done. It ends right here, but
And
it
I think
starts tomorrow.
And I think if every dad, business owner, and mom, also business owner, were listening to this, there'd be a lot of hands raising, like, "Yep, yep, me too. I've been there." Um, what do you feel like? Do you feel part of this being entrapped so much with the business was part of that the need for approval? Do you feel like this was a because you weren't aware of it at the time, and so I'm kind of digging in the subconscious, but subconsciously, was this kind of like a need for approval? Why do you think? Because this is what you specialize now in working. Now that you can kind of go back and analyze yourself, what was it? What was happening there that was causing you to spend so much time in this business? Was it operational? Was it an emotional issue? What was it?
Yeah, I do. I think you nailed it. It's the approval part. There's this dopamine hit that we get as founders and entrepreneurs, that when we're like helping, and somebody comes to us, asks for help, and we help, it's like Yeah, they need me. They look up to me. I'm the man.
I'm a
And I don't know,
leader.
maybe yeah, I'm the leader. And really, like when I look back and reflect, I mean, doing that kind of action and just kind of being the superhero for my team is really the worst form of leadership you could possibly have, because I'm training them to be dependent on me. It's bad for me. It's bad for them. They don't necessarily learn critical thinking skills on their own. That other places that they work at aren't going to see them at their best if they don't bring a resume of being able to solve problems and challenges and issues. So yeah, initially I'm like, yeah, I'm a great leader. I'm providing the answers, and my ego's feeling pretty good too. But at the end of the day, it's really making me more dependent on the business. And then the second I step away, they can't do anything without me. It's like not only does the business halt, it actually like starts to go backwards. It's like, where's George? We can't do anything. We need his approval for this, or can we do that, or how do you do this? And so yeah, I believe that there is that fact that I was looking for approval, but I was just looking for it in the wrong place.
Yeah. Walk me through this journey because your dad made this bold statement. It hit home in a way that hadn't hit home before. You were receiving clues from what's your wife's name?
Michelle?
Michelle. Michelle's talking to you. She's kind of sending you little hints here. Hey, you're missing this moment. Here's a photo. Here's a video. Your son's born. Um, and then your father says this. I'm sure this wasn't an overnight, like, okay, tomorrow I'm just changing everything. And suddenly you start ramping up to a $50 million company. Walk me through those steps. Like what happened? Did you go back home? Did you hire somebody to help you figure this out? How did you go from working however many hours you were, being the go-to for everything, to suddenly separating yourself from the business while still scaling the business? How did that happen?
Yeah. So my dad tells me this in late 2015, and my thought was, okay, I'm game. I want to do this. I want to change my life, but it has to start tomorrow because I'm working 16 hours today. And then, the common entrepreneur thought is I'll start tomorrow. And then, tomorrow, a zillion tomorrows usually means never. But in my case, it lasted about 3 years. And the reason it stopped at a certain point is because now we're in the summer of 2018. My dad's already long gone, and my business was scaling up to $20 million, and that was my highest revenue year at that point in my 20 plus years at that time. And so very successful, very profitable business, and more money than I've ever really had. So it's like I should be set, I should be happy. Had you told me years prior you're going to make 20 million 1 year and it's going to be profitable, I'd be like, I've made it. But in reality, I was hating life. And I don't say hate lightly. When I say it, it's just like this visceral disgust for
Yeah,
the
yeah,
moment.
tell me about that. I mean, what do you mean hate? Like what weren't you liking about
Yeah,
life
I
at
know it's a strong word, but it's basically the lack of presence at home that it was making me have to go through, essentially pulling me out of home, and not only like physically out of the house, but when I was home mentally, I was bringing home the trash from work, from the office, the stress that would come over. Like if my wife's sitting in front of me, or you're sitting in front of me and we're chatting, I might be looking at you, but my head is like somewhere else. And you might be saying this amazing story, and I'm just like nodding like a zombie. And then but like in my head, I'm like, okay, there's this fire I got to do.
You're
What
thinking
time is
about
my?
accounting and this client that has a fire and yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so just bringing that trash home, and then having that be part of essentially my family interaction. And then another thing is like, okay, we're on vacation. I should be present with my family, but really for me, it was just like working on vacation. And laptop comes with me, and then we're at having a nice dinner as a family. I get a call or a text about something urgent, and it's hey, we just need 5 minutes, and I'm like, I tell family, okay, just give me like 5 minutes. And of course, they already know five's never really five. Let's just call it 5, maybe it means 30. But in many cases, a quick 5 minutes could mean a couple of hours. And I'm, outside trying to put out a big fire while they're having dessert for the fourth time at the table, just bored waiting for me to get back. And so
And
that's,
and if I can interject here, when this was happening, I mean, were you aware of it at the time? Is it kind of like when, I'm kind of, I try to stay in good shape, but I can be an emotional eater sometimes. If I'm stressed or, things like that, I tend to munch on a lot of stuff. So it takes a lot of conscious effort not to do that. But is it one of those things where, like, let's say I go to a fast food, which I don't do often, but if I go get some fast food and it's like I'm regretting even being in that line, and then I buy and take my first bite into it, and it tastes good, but I'm like regretting it as it's happening, but it's like not stopping. Is it kind of like that where it's like you were aware of it happening in real time, but you couldn't figure out how to stop it? Or was there also a part of you in that moment that was like still feeling like important? Like, I don't like this, but I kind of need this.
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like at that point when I got to the point where like I hate this thing, I feel like I was sort of done with the need slash approval aspect of it. I feel like a part of me was like, look, I've made it, I've reached this level. Why am I still doing this stuff? So it's almost like I have to do it because I got to keep the business running. And these are critical things for a
Yeah,
scaling
because
business.
what would have happened if you suddenly stop? Would your business just tanked or
I mean, it would fall apart. I'd love to think that the people I had in place were fully capable of maintaining it, and maybe to a degree, but because I was responsible for all of the decisions, I'm the classic bottleneck where everything stops at. Eventually, it just would have halted. Maybe it could have gotten by with a few hours of my absence, but yeah, for anything more than that, it likely would have just like, all right, yeah, we need George. And when you're doing those kind of numbers, you're getting bills and invoices from vendors who need to get paid like right now because they're sending you traffic. And so it's like you want to keep that traffic and that cash flow going, you need to pay those invoices. But before you pay them, you got to validate and reconcile them, because if you blindly pay invoices, whether it's devious or human error, one little comma, one little decimal point can cost just six-figure mistake. And don't ask me how I know that. And so, like, a lot of those things, even past mistakes contribute to like this PTSD where you're like on edge and you don't really know like how to operate. So sometimes things mount so much you don't even know where to begin. And so, yeah, for me, the hardest thing to like let go when I finally like bought into the concept of, yes, I want to get all this off my plate. The last thing was letting go of the invoice reconciliation. But once I did that, that's when I got my true freedom.
yeah. And how I mean, so besides how you felt about yourself, how do you think your family felt? I mean, were you able to disguise it well enough, or were you unpleasant to be around during that time? I mean, how was it?
Yeah, looking back, I want to say I disguised it pretty well, but you get to a point where almost like I am disguising so much that I'm just breaking now. Like I can't do this anymore, and then you become like your frustrated version of husband slash dad. On edge, testy. You can't sleep well. Obviously, we all know if you don't sleep well, that affects many areas of your life. Forgetting the business problems. So yeah, it was like a bomb on the whole family, and I'm so thankful that I have the wife that I do, because I'm telling you, it really takes two to make things want to work, especially when you're in that kind of tensious situation. And thankfully, I have a saint of a wife that put up with me through that period.
Yeah. And so once you started to realize like, okay, yeah, I hate this and it's I need a change. I need to change the way I'm operating my business. Once you started realizing that, you started kind of mentioning some of the things you started letting go of, like invoicing. You let go of that. When you say that, I imagine you trained up somebody to be able to do that. Right? Walk me through a little bit in terms of how that process looks like, because I think most founders, business owners, especially if they've never built a business before, or if they don't have mentors, or if they don't have coaches, a lot of times they feel like the solution to everything is simply working harder, right? Working more. If I could just work my ass off through this hill, I'll get over that hill. What they don't realize is you work your ass off over this hill and there's a mountain behind that, right? Because every business, it's called scaling for a reason, because there's every new stage has new obstacles that you didn't have to deal with before, whether they're employee related, they're customer related, insurance related. I mean, it could be all over the place, right? So walk me through this what was your approach? How was your approach different than just working through it? Training people up, how long did that take? The time frame of how long it took before you were able to finally start to pull away from the business and really notice a notable difference in your life. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so the time frame was a little under 2 years. It could have been a lot sooner, but I might have alluded to before kind of the entrepreneur identity of I'm the best one at this task. Nobody can do it like me. Like once you let go of that, then that's when you really start to see change. And so it could have happened in I'd say 6 months to a year. But anyway, for me it was 2 years. So I got there and took it from $20 million to just shy of $50 million, more than doubling the business,
Yeah.
working like never more than 30 hours a week. and sometimes living semi-retired, like a semi-retired lifestyle. And the most impressive part of all that is, like my dad said, don't miss Leo's games. I never missed any of his games. At 8 years old, I taught him how to negotiate real estate, and even to current day, he's got a podcast with 40 plus guests. You being one of the awesome ones as well. So that's just evidence of a present dad at home. And so, yeah, that's the outcome. But how did we get there? Is essentially getting things off of my plate, or getting things off of the owner's plate is how you do it. And you do it through delegating outcomes, not tasks. When you delegate tasks, I just call that delayed involvement. It just means here's a task for you. It'll be a matter of time before I'm roped back in. And that's the delayed involvement. But when you delegate outcomes, you're showing them what the outcome looks like. And you even give them the liberty to get there if there's a different path. But what I like to do is show them step by step using a tool like Loom. You record the process, take the Loom transcript, put it in chat, have it give you a very nice SOP. And then I tell the person I'm outsourcing to, hey, I got 10 minutes or 30 minutes, however long it's going to take to communicate. Here are the instructions. Here's a Google doc with the SOP and the Loom video. I'm standing by, watch it, give you 10, 15 minutes, however long it is, and tell me if you understand. And it's either going to be, yes, I get it, or it's going to be, oh, there's one thing a little foggy. Okay, great. I just did it. So let me clear that up. Okay, good. How about now? Yeah, we're good. Okay, awesome. It's yours. I should never, ever see this again. The only time I should ever see it, or we talk about it, is if like we have a vendor change, there's a strategic change in the approach of that task, or whatever the outcome is that we want. Other than that, it's yours. It's off my plate. You are fully capable. You have all the decision rights to execute on this. Are we clear? And yes, okay, good. And then gone, done. And that's how you do it essentially.
Yeah, so it sounds like you were. I love that what you just said. It's not delegating tasks, delegating outcomes. In a way, I mean, it's what you're essentially doing is you're giving autonomy, right? And the power for employees to be able to make decisions, right, without your involvement. Because you're right. If you delegate a task, hey, I want you to complete this paperwork or whatever. They're eventually going to have questions. They don't know what that completed. Knowing what that outcome looks like, you can use your creativity and resourcefulness to figure out what you need to do in order to. But you're also providing an SOP, rules, instructions, a Loom video, and so it makes sense why that probably took about 2 years. At your scale, you had employees, people you were outsourcing to, so you were doing that for every department. It sounds like.
Yeah, that's it. And then installing leaders or placing leaders in those departments where everything rolls up to them. So I might have 2 or 3 people reporting to me, as opposed to, back in the old days, it was as many as 40 people. And I thought the way that I get out of my problems, I would just hire out of them, which of course is the worst thing looking back. But that's what most founders do. And yeah, I did that for a long time.
Who would you credit it to for, or was this all you? Did you kind of figure it out on your own through your own research, or did you have any mentors or
Yeah,
coaches?
yeah. I had a coach and a mentor. So like when I say, using the word hate, I'm literally using that word because that's what I told my coach and my mentor at the time. And it came to this point where there was so much just falling on me that depended on me. And these are critical things that can cripple the business, things like merchant accounts, or server outage, and then communicating with affiliates and networks, and just trying to make everybody happy. And there was a point where I'm like, I just don't want this anymore. I'm done. I'm out. So there was 2 things I could do. I could sell the business, but it's not like you can snap your fingers and sell a business. That's a multi-year process. Getting the finances ready, hitting the market, get your evaluation. LOIs, 80% of them don't come through, right? So that's a multi-year process. The other process is you could burn the thing down. You can light a match. You could pull the site off the server and be like, I'm done. Not the smartest thing to do, but when you're at that point, you're like, you're like, well, pros and cons. And so my mentor just lovingly walked me off the ledge, and he basically said the words that became the foundation of this new path that I took. And he said, stop doing what you don't like doing and keep doing what you're good at. I'm good on the marketing side, the marketing message, average order value, customer retention, the fun money making stuff of online marketing, not the, HR, admin, the server, merchant accounts. Important, but it shouldn't be the same brain. And so that's when I first started saying, okay, there is a pathway out of this, and I just have to follow, systems, framework, structure, remove myself from being the bottleneck. I didn't know what any of those words meant at the time, but I'm just doing the work. And the outcome is when I got my freedom back and I was able to restore the bond with my family that was broken over years of, yeah, I'll be there. Oops, sorry, I can't. You know, you get it. It's the business calling again. And, eventually your family starts to plan a life without you. And that hurts, but it's like, okay, well, you kind of built your own grave essentially, or at least that's what I would tell myself. Yeah. So it takes a while to restore the bond with your family. But once you're like, okay, I'm committed to change this. And they're like, yeah, we've heard that before. But so you have to like show up and be consistent, and then over time, it's like, okay, we're back to being a cohesive family unit.
Yeah, yeah, man, and that's the kind of stuff that I can relate to so much, and I gotta imagine there's a lot of people who can relate to that as well. The difference is, who's consciously thinking about that on an ongoing basis versus are we burying those feelings and emotions and just kind of driving through. But I remember last year, there was a big turning point. It was kind of the reason why this whole life first conversations even started. It was also my wife who kind of inspired this to happen. But I can't say I was working as many hours as you were. My business is fortunately more forgiving. It does allow me more freedom of time. But I was going through a phase in my business where expanding rapidly, which is good, but that demanded a lot more of my own time. And what you just said now, if you don't, your family kind of starts planning without you, making a life without you. And as soon as you said that, I specifically remember there was a couple of times my wife's a teacher. And so it was summer and we were making plans for going to the beach and stuff like that. And I couldn't go. And so she ended up planning a whole day with like her friends and sending me pictures. It got to me. It's like, man, I should be there, but here I am working on a weekend to catch up because I'm behind. Excuse me.
Yeah, no, that stuff totally it hits home once you start to feel and see the family impact of that. Like yeah, like my wife would like plan lunches and little getaways, with the family, little midday kind of stuff. And I remember one day I was like, hey, I don't plan to work much today. Why didn't anybody tell me this? And it's just kind of like, well, would you have even gone? And I'm just like, yeah, you're right. I probably would have just said I better stay back because there's always the thing that's going to pop up. So I guess it was that feeling of not being invited was kind of hurtful, but there's a reason why it happened. It wasn't like nobody's trying to like hurt me. It's just the position that I put myself in. So yeah, I could totally resonate with that.
When you started making these shifts, did you have the goal of taking your business from 20 million to 50? Was Did you know that was going to happen? Was that part of the plan?
Yeah. I'd say at the time, I did want to continue to grow and scale the business, but I don't think I expected that rapid of growth. So definitely wasn't like, I'm going to more than double my business once I do this. I just would have been happy had it maintained with me stepping out of the way. But thankfully, when you put in systems that are scalable, then, you kind of grow, you grow in either direction pretty simply because you got the frameworks in place. And so that really allowed us to do that.
I want you to spend some time on that because I'm going through this right now myself. When I talk to other business owners about this idea of being able to step away from the business but still continue to grow it, that sounds very counterintuitive. How does that happen? And again, this is what you do now for a living. You work with dad founders, and you're helping them kind of do exactly what you did in their own way. But can you break this down? Like, what does it actually mean when you say you can, in fact, grow your business substantially by stepping away? Like, I know what you mean when you say that, but I don't think everybody does.
Yeah, no, that's a good question because yeah, intuitively it's like, work less, make more. Shouldn't it be the opposite? And so totally get that. The way that you do that is it's not that we're abandoning or just leaving the obligations, without anybody attending to them. What we're doing is we're putting systems in place, delegating with ownership and a number of other things, but that's the main one. And we're handing those tasks off to somebody else with the proper structure to handle them. And so we're still getting all that stuff done. Now, what that does for the founder, it frees up their time from doing the mundane stuff. Super important. So I don't want to downplay it, but it's like doesn't move revenue for the business. It's just supporting the business. Important, yes. But where the founder should be focused on, where my time was best spent, is what I call the zone of genius, which for me, it's strategic networking, entering new marketplaces, coming up with new products, and new marketing angles. And so anything that adds the opportunity to bring revenue for the business, that's where my time should be spent. So, like, for example, at the peak of the insanity of my work, I could say I was working 80 to 90 hours a week. And it sounds crazy as I say that. I'm like, I didn't even know there were that many hours in a week. But yeah, apparently there's a few more hours. I almost got all of them. And so when I did the first step in identifying the things that you're doing, we just got to shine a light on what it is you're doing. We're not doing anything with it right now. We just got to shine a light. And once I did get all of the list of the things that I was doing, I run it by my filter of how much I'm worth per hour. It's going to be different for everybody. I call it a 10K filter, 10K per hour filter. And so for me, my zone of genius at my peak is $10,000 an hour at minimum 1,000. For the founder listening, it could be 100, could be 500, could be 100,000. Like, it could be anywhere, but figure out that number. And then you run that list of stuff that we shined a light on through that filter. When I did that for myself, I realized that 40 of my hours, so about half of my work week, was on tasks that I could have had somebody else do for $50 an hour or less. And so I'm not a mathematician, but just say $50 an hour times 40 hours a week is $2,000. And when I have a very profitable, highly successful, business cranking out money, $2,000 is not a humongous investment to buy back half of my time and my sanity and all the other benefits associated with getting all of those tasks off my plate. What that also does is, call it the other 40 hours. Now I'm able to work those hours, clear-minded, less stress, not switching context, which is a murder of productivity. Hey, give me 5 minutes, never 5 minutes. But anyway, shift over here and then you shift back and it takes you a half hour to get back in the zone. No more of that. So now that 40 hours became 20, 25 hours. And so now I'm doing my zone of genius stuff, but multiplying the effects and the benefits of the time in much less time. And so now I'm able to be done with work at a certain time and be fully present with the family. I could leave my phone, my technology in another room so that as my wife and my children are talking, I'm fully present. I'm listening. I'm thinking about what they're saying. I'm reflecting back and I'm fully engaged versus the old way of phone in hand and then trying to pay attention to the family. It just wasn't working for me. Yeah, that's where this whole thing went.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. So and I think the biggest takeaway I got from what you just said, it's that genius moment. So one of the things I started experiencing myself is I kind of the analogy I give is when I'm working with founders and business owners for financial planning and wealth management, usually the problem isn't, how do we grow wealth? How do we make sure we're financial? They've typically already done a fantastic job getting there. The question is just now, what do we do from here? How do we build something for our families that is meaningful, impactful, generational wealth, all that stuff. And if what we're doing on a day to day basis is we're so focused on so many different things, the business, the kids events, like all these, everything that we have to accomplish in life, our relationships, our community, my doctor's appointment. Oh, by the way, I have to eat healthy and I have to exercise and I have to make time for those things, right? There's so many. Being at that level, you're effectively, I see this very often, it's founders, business owners that are trying to scale up, improve every domain of their life, right? Their marriage, their relationships, the way they mental health, the spirituality, right? How can we become better human beings, which is great. But when you're spending that much time and energy focusing on all of those things, it becomes really hard to think about, like, where do I want to lead my family to? In your world, where do I want to lead this business to? There is, when you're worried about invoicing and administrative tasks and clients onboarding and fires and dealing with vendors and insurance providers and all these different things, you can't really step away for 6 hours and think about, like, okay, how can I improve this process? We're here right now. How can I change this? And sometimes it's just having enough time. What I consider the genius moment is having enough time to sit with my own thoughts so that I could probably think different.
Yeah. No, that's huge. Yeah, I call that white space for thinking, and that needs to be on the calendar because, the old saying goes, I know it's kind of overused saying, but, when you're traveling and you're flying and they say, put the mask on you first and not the child. Cause like intuitively, I'm like, well, don't you want the kid to go first? But then it's like, no, but because if you as the parent, you perish in your attempt of putting on your child's not going to know how to save themselves. So it's like, save yourself first so that you could save the people that you're leading. So you can save the company that you're leading. So you can save the family that you're leading. don't mean save literally, but like, be a better leader in both of those capacities. And
Yeah.
so that's why I am a big advocate, and I even recommend to my clients white space for thinking on a personal level as well as on a business level, because that's where some of your best ideas are going to come from.
So let's get to what you're doing now. And before that, I mean, obviously, so you sold the business. We don't even need to go through all those details, but you did sell it. I guess what I'm curious about is what was the decision like to sell the business? Because you had your life back. You're making even more money than you were before. Why sell it?
Yeah, I sold a portion of it, so I'm not completely out of it. I still play like a board advisor to
Okay.
the company that I founded, but my role is greatly diminished in it just as a result of the role and the level of ownership that I'm in. But yeah, the purpose of selling it at the time was to partner up with another group who's looking to expand and bolt on other things, and for the
Right.
opportunity for a bigger scale exit at some point. And so that's still getting played out. But I found myself in this kind of interesting, pathway of, okay, I'm at the time, 46, 47. I'm not a spring chicken, but I'm not like ancient history yet. I'm kind of in the middle there. So there's still some miles left on this vehicle here. So what are we going to do? And the option, the obvious option was, hey, just go back in direct response. You've made hundreds of millions in doing that. Just keep doing that. And then I felt like, I got this, I don't know if it's like God, he didn't say it in some booming voice, but I felt inward in my heart that I was placed on this earth to do more than just stack cash selling stuff. And I know you can do a lot of good things with money, and people do that, and please keep doing that. But I feel like my work was supposed to be impactful too, like what I'm doing on a daily basis. And I know we've talked a lot about, the bottleneck and, kind of having the business run smoother, make money without you. That's all good stuff. Even reconnecting with the family and happy home, happy marriage and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, my heart breaks for the little boy or the little girl who's like, where the heck is my dad? And why is like work more important than me? And whether or not that's the dad's intention to relay that feeling, that's the end result that a lot of kids are feeling. And so like I feel like I'm doing it for that child who's like, I need my dad back in the home. And this applies for women and moms too. And so I just want to shine a light on, like, your children are going to get influence from somewhere. Like, they're going to get it. Better they get it from you versus all the other options that are out there, which right now the common options are the iPads and the iPhones, which means open to the World Wide Web. And kids are exposed to the craziest things you could argue no human should ever look at, but they're looking at it younger ages, seems like every year. And so, yeah, my goal is just to shine a light on that. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Like, you have to make it happen if you truly care and love about your family.
Well, let's shine a little light on that now. I mean, what would you say is, I mean, you're saying what you're talking about are hard truths. What would you say is an uncomfortable truth for a founder dad, something that they don't necessarily want to hear?
Yeah, just that. What's the difference between, like, like an absent father, home, and then the home that you might currently have? Because I'll just tell you, there was no difference in my home. Like, you might as well have said that this home, there's like no father in the home because there's no fatherly presence. And I know it's a tough subject, and it's hard, and it's a hard thing to swallow. Essentially, it was hard for me to swallow that, but the change didn't come, and it didn't happen until I accepted that.
Yeah. 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 Wow. And so now what are you focused on doing? What's your current business? What do you offer? What's it called? What are you
Yeah,
offering?
absolutely. So I created a movement called Buyback Time Formula. There happens to be a book by the same title. And so it basically shares all of my frameworks in that book on how I got myself from founder prisoner that I built myself into to complete and total freedom, living semi-retired lifestyle, never working more than 30 hours a week, being able to pour into my family and be the dad that I feel like I was born to be. And so that's my goal, is to shine the light that is a path that people can take. And once you see it, you really can't unsee it. And the frameworks are all in the book, but I know there's a number of people who are going to get the book and be like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. No stone unturned. There's no like, go here for the secret place and you got to pay thousands of dollars to get the secrets. It's all in the book. You might get and be like, I don't even need George. It's in the book. But I know that there's going to be people like me of 10 years ago, and I call it cash rich, time poor. You got all the money in the world, or at least all the money in your world that you need, but time is like you think it's not available, and your family's the one paying the price as a result of that. And so in my case, I would have paid a mini fortune to collapse the time it took from founder prisoner to total freedom. And so I'm available to help walk people along that path, along that journey. And we hit the ground running pretty quickly. And the goal is to have 2 weeks off in the business starting 6 months from when we begin. And we don't do it by magic or wishful thinking. We get to work quickly and we make it happen.
So when you're working with a founder or a business owner, and is it dads
You know,
exclusively, or is it
my
kind of both?
message resonates with founder dads. It's a lot in my story. It doesn't have to be a dad. I've worked with men who are, they're not dads yet. Their goal is to one day be one, but they're trapped in their business, and they might have a significant other, or they might be married, and they're sort of feeling that tension. But yeah, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a dad. It's really just about restoring the presence at home, and just in the personal life, which home obviously is a major extension of that.
Yeah. And so when you're working with clients, you said the goal is that 6 months from whenever you start engaging with them, they're going to take 2 weeks off.
That's the goal. Yeah. On the onboarding call, one of the first questions is like, hey, look at your calendar 6 months from now, and give or take a few weeks. Doesn't have to be exact, but in that range, and block out 2 weeks for the vacation. And usually they like, wait, what? And they freak out and they're like, I can't even take an afternoon off. How am I going to take 2 weeks off? And I love it when that's their response, because I'm like, you need this more than you know, if that's what you're thinking. And I love it. You're in the right place. And then we're like, because the clock starts right now, that's how we're going to do it. And we don't just like jump in cold turkey 6 months from now. We're going to do what's called an absence rehearsal test. So you're freaking out about an afternoon. So we're going to just take an afternoon off so that your brain can realize we're good for the afternoon. So what happened? So the next day you'll look back and see what blew up in the business. Well, probably nothing, but you might identify maybe the accounting department didn't get an invoice, or maybe the shipping people didn't get a fulfillment, whatever. It's coming a few hours late. It's not catastrophic. So we button that up, and then we do like a two-day absence rehearsal test. So now we're off the grid for a couple of days in the middle of the week, and that'll expose maybe another little weak link, not catastrophic to the business, but just something that maybe it's a day or two delayed. And we button that up so that by the time we get to 6 months, we've already stress tested the system and we're confident and we're able to take time off, and nothing penetrates to the founder. It's all stopped by your number two, like an operations person, and everything routes to them. All the decision rights are given to them, so they can make the calls. And so only extreme situations would qualify to even pierce that, but it's so extreme I've never seen it. It's not even worth thinking of what those things could be. And really all that the founder's doing in those 2 weeks, aside from reconnecting with their family and hopefully just enjoying the time away, is that they're getting one simple daily update of the 5 to 8 metrics that they need to know that their business is growing without them. And that's usually like revenue, net profit, product sold, like whatever it is. Every business is going to have like 5 to 8 different metrics. And so they get a little snapshot of that. You're not logging in 20 different CRMs to check for information. It's all provided for you in one snapshot, same time every day.
Yeah. So okay. What's the aha moment that you see with business owners? The aha moment of when something like when you think they would be open to even receiving something like this? Because obviously, I think there's some founder dads that are maybe in that stage where their families are kind of feeling they're paying the price of their commitment to their business, but they may not be realizing it. They may not be aware of it. It could be happening. I mean, you were in that. We've all been there. But when do you feel like there's an aha moment where you could say, okay, I think you're ready to now start really investing some time into changing things?
Yeah, I think that's different for everybody. But yeah, for me, it was just when like I can't take another night of being interrupted. I can't take another day of being short with my family. And I could see it on their faces. They can't take another moment of me just bringing the grumpy, stressed out version of husband/dad in the household. And so again, it's different for everybody, but you really know it once you start to feel like I've become somebody who I don't even enjoy being. My family doesn't enjoy me being around them. And honestly, like I've seen it with other clients, like the family's on the verge of leaving them for good. That wasn't my story, but some of the clients that I've had in the past, like they lose half of their net worth because they catch this too late. Some people can't even recover after that because, anyway, we can all kind of know people who've been through situations like that. But even the saddest part of all that is just losing the consistent access to the children's. Yeah, that's what they got to keep in mind.
Yeah. Well, it seems like what you really care about here, the person in the room that is the most important to you is that child. It's the young George. It's that your father was speaking to in his deathbed, reminding you to not miss um, Leo's games. um, that's the important person. That's the difference, the impact that you're trying to make, and that's kind of what this purpose is all about. And I commend that so much. I think that we need more of that. How does Leo feel about all this? I mean, you're around his life a lot. I mean, do you talk about these things? Do you talk about the mistakes you made and what you're doing now?
Yeah, he loves it. He gets to follow along. He gets a front row seat. He gets to hear me and see me on podcasts. And yeah, I love the fact that I'm doing some work that's really making him proud because he sees the impact of that. I have this saying that, I've sold millions of bottles of pills and I've never had anybody tell me, oh my gosh, your bottle of pills completely changed my life. I mean, sure, maybe they get less joint pain, maybe a better memory, but it's not transformational and it's not designed to be. It's just a bottle of pills. But ever since I've come out with this message, I've had a number of men just text me like, "Oh my gosh, my kids light up like a Christmas tree at my presence." And I got to tell you that like satisfies my soul. That makes me feel like I'm having a great impact on this earth. And I'm not doing it for any kind of personal glory, but it sort of satisfies that thing of like, am I really making an impact? And then I love to share that with Leo because I'm like, our family's like really having an impact. And so yeah, it's exciting to be able to share that with.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And I mean, just to share a little bit of my own kind of personal, I had a moment last week where I think I was going 2 weeks of just a lot of stuff happening, a lot of changes. Schedule was getting really busy. I'm not perfect. I still every now and then come back to this. I find myself my mind being preoccupied with work, so I have to readjust, recalibrate. But that recalibration happened. There was a moment last week where I noticed I was spending a lot of time thinking about work and other things. And I made a conscious decision to just kind of say, all right, I can't think about that. I kind of had my own self-talk, set those things aside. And it was almost kind of like I woke up from a dream in real time. And suddenly like my kids were there the whole time, but like I was able to see them a little differently. And I'm signing my kids up for jujitsu. My son's autistic, so he needs a lot of extra help. And he wasn't getting this move. It's like a rolling move. And so we ended up spending what I thought was just going to be like a 5 minute, 10-minute thing. We ended up spending almost an hour working on this thing. And to your point, by the end of this hour, we're about the 45-minute mark. And I was saying, all right, buddy, we've been working on this a lot. He wasn't getting it quite yet. And I'm like, we can try again tomorrow. It's okay. Like I'm really proud of you. And he's like, no, I want to keep going. I'm like, really? And so we kept going. And so he ended up getting it. Took him about an hour to get it, but he got it. And we celebrated. And I could just see like he lit up. I mean, the whole evening just felt different. And we've all experienced that as parents. And I think that's kind of the magic that you're trying to recreate in every household. I know we're wrapping up here. After having gone through everything, would you say that, you've kind of reached the point in your life where you've kind of perfected this and you're always on point? Or is this still something that you're still having to come back to and something that you're working on?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah, I feel like we're always going to be on that journey in life of getting better and better. And so, yeah, something I have to be consciously aware of that I fought so hard to get my time back that it's easy to give away if you don't have guardrails protecting it. Like, for example, like I don't work more than 30 hours a week. And so if I'm doing something, it needs to fall in that time frame. And if it doesn't, it goes to the next day or the next week or whatever happens at the end of the day or the weeks. Yeah, you just gotta make sure that you protect what you fought so hard for. That's key.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Well, the last question I have for you is just, this interview series is called Life First Conversations. To you, what does that mean? What does life first mean to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, life first can mean so much. I mean, I'm a man of faith, so I believe, God's a sovereign God and I'm just like playing my role and I'm asking him for, the next step. I don't need to see the next 10 steps, just one step. And I think staying in alignment with the path and the movement that he wants me to go in is sort of like the definition of life for me is just okay, I'm living the life according to the way that I believe God's got me down that path. And a big part of that is also like leading my family in that direction with me and just being the leader at home. And that translates into work too, leading the people that work for me and do amazing things for me. And just loving on them, respecting them, and showing them appreciation, and just being the best example that I can be for them. And then just continually having a heart for the people that I serve as clients, and my future clients that are out there. It's just again, and then my heart just breaks for the young child that's like missing their dad. And so as long as my focus can stay there, I feel like I'll be in a good place.
Life first for you is being in alignment with source, with that
That's
source.
it. That's it. I'd love to hear what it is for you.
It's actually very similar. It's kind of the same thing. For me, life first. I think I like to think about life first as the small things that we sometimes overlook. And I mean by small as I think in the interview I had with Leo, he asked me a question about how can we change the world and make it better or something like that. And I said something along the lines of awareness. Awareness to me is so important. Not just awareness of like surroundings, but awareness within us, like, what am I feeling in this moment? Oh, I'm feeling angry. Like, is this really anger or is this fear? But it's those small things that we don't notice. They happen, right? Habitually or instinctively, or, small moments with your family, small moments of inspiration, being connected to faith or whatever it is. Sometimes, I don't always remember to, give my thanks at the end of the day for all the good that has happened. There's a blanket statement of I give thanks for all the good that's happened, but specifically the small little things like, I was walking down the street and I noticed I made somebody smile because I smiled at them. I was having a really shitty day, but I decided to smile and they just smiled back. Like, that was a special moment. So to me, life first is just being aware, being attentive to the small things that really make a difference in our world. The material stuff, money, wealth, they're important, as you said. But what's really more important, it's usually what's right under your nose.
That's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can agree with that.
Yeah. Awesome. George, thanks so much for having this conversation with me. How can people find you if somebody is watching this and they want to have a conversation with you? What's the best way to reach you?
Yes, thank you, Miguel. It's been awesome chatting with you. So my website, buybacktimeformula.com. There, anybody can book a call with me. You can check out my book. You can see one of the events. I host dinners at my home in Austin. I also post on socials daily. So you can kind of find all of that at buybacktimeformula.com.
Sounds good. Awesome. Well, thanks, George. I'm looking forward to another conversation with you down the road, and looking forward to staying connected. All right. Take care.